If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
This is another of our popular Listener's Choice interviews, which we're playing over the weekend. We've chosen the most popular interviews for you to select the Listener's Choice winner. If you're not sure how the Listener's Choice competition works, have a look at horsechats.com/choice for the rules and the leaderboard. Our guest today is Keryn Connors. Keryn's had a lifetime of experience with horses with a mixed lot of experience. She's done dressage, show jumping, eventing. She's also done polo cross, chase brumbies, camp drafting, and is a qualified coach. How are you today, Keryn?
I'm very well, thank you, Glenys.
Great. Now, Keryn, your favourite quote, what is it?
I think that would have to be the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yes.
And at the same time, work smarter, not harder.
Okay.
So at face value, a little contradictory, but if I can keep both of those in mind, I'll be fine.
Okay, so focus on the smartness rather than the harder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it should be the smarter I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah, cut out the work part.
Yeah, that might be better. You could have your own quote there, the smarter I work, the luckier I get. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so tell us a little bit about why you've got that.
That quote?
Yes.
I think I hear so often that people are lucky to have various things. They might be lucky to have a wonderful horse, or they might be lucky to have had some opportunities, and I think a lot of that boils down to your planning, your commitment, and just sheer, I was going to say bloody-mindedness, but I probably can't swear on this. So I've always found that I've worked very, very hard in my career to get where I am with the horses, so it's just been a lot of hard work that's paid off.
Okay. And a bit of persistence, do you think, in there?
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of persistence.
Yeah. Tell me about, I know you started early with horses. What was one of your first memories with horses?
The very first thing I remember, I grew up in a housing commission area, and I remember the milkman delivering horses, and he would be able to deliver the bottles to each house while the horse just went on and did its own thing. And I just thought, what a wonderful... And I would have only been about 9 or 10 then, but I'm just remembering the rapport between the two, the milkman and the horse, and that really captured my imagination. I think that's one of the first things I remember about. That was before I had horses. Okay.
Now tell me about the tablecloth.
My grandmother, who died when I was quite young, she actually died on Christmas Day, and then in the mail came a tablecloth that she had sent on a recent visit to Europe. And it had come by boat, and it arrived after she did and after she died. And so this tablecloth turned up. I'm getting a bit teary now. And it had Lipizzaner horses that she'd been to the Spanish riding school. And I've still got it. And it's a little bit moth-eaten and quite old and thin, but I've still got it, and it'll never go.
So she was obviously inspired then from the horses at the Spanish riding school.
Either that or she thought I would be.
Okay.
Yeah, because she didn't have anything to do with horses.
Yeah. Now, when you were young, tell us a little bit about how you learned to break in, or what your thoughts were about breaking in horses, and what introduced you to that.
Well, as I said, I was in a non-horsey background, so I depended a lot on books, and there was no YouTube or any of that sort of thing then. And we bred this little horse, and I decided to break it in. It was just a Galloway. And so we had our paddock a long way out of the town. I used to ride out every day on my push bike, and I tried to break this horse in with book. Oh, I did break him in using books. I got some from the library, and I bought one. So I remember sitting in these stockyards of a neighbour's paddock, and he let me use the stockyards, and I'm sitting on the ground with the book and some ropes and some leather, trying to work out how I was supposed to break this horse in. And I did it all from books, and I've always then loved breaking in horses and and I've loved learning other people's experiences in breaking in horses. I love Tom Roberts. I love Monty Roberts. I've got lots of things out of all those books, and the horses themselves, of course, because every single horse is different.
Yep. So there was no one around that you could have asked, how do you do this?
No.
But it was just the books.
No.
Yeah. Lucky for the written word then. That was good.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So from breaking in the horses, from books, what about having a career with horses? Were you always going to do that? Did you do something else first? Did you always go straight into horses? How did that work out?
No, horses are a hobby for me.
Mm-hmm.
My career hasn't been horses. I was a scientist with Esso at the Longford gas plant, Crescent Crude plant, for a long time. I worked offshore for 27 years. I was with them, and then moved into a regulatory role with them, and that really supported my horses. And then I retired 2 years ago now, and I've had my coaching certificate, and I'm a judge as well, dressage judge. So I've done a bit of coaching and so on.
What made you become a coach then? Was it, someone said you should do this, or you decided that you wanted to start teaching someone? What happened there?
I've always had a real keen interest in learning.
Yep.
And so I followed all those things without the thought of being a coach. But I lived in a remote area, especially as far as dressage went, and people used to ask me for lessons because I was probably the only one, or one of the first people from that area competing.
Mm-hmm. And probably you'd read all the books too.
And I had read a lot of books.
Yes.
And then when I started the dressage after doing a lot of show jumping, I went down to Sue Chandler, closer to Melbourne, and she inspired me as well. And so I took that back to the Sale area, and so in Sale I was the only one that could help a lot of people. I was the only one with that experience without them making the big trip for lessons. So I got into teaching that way, and then I did the coaching certificates
from there.
But I really started around the wrong way. I started teaching and then got the certificates.
Okay. Yes, no, you probably recommend the other way around now, get qualified before you get started, and start off under the guidance of someone who's been there, done that.
Yeah. But I did have a lot of horsemanship because I've been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah.
Being involved with horses. So I could offer a lot, but the coaching certificate, that formalised it and made me understand the wavelengths that every other coach is on.
It's also good just, we can all have a lot of horsemanship, but we can go off and be doing the wrong thing continuously, but not necessarily know. So, having Sue to help you there, I'm sure that was very good to just keep you on the right path, and say, right, this is the way.
Yeah.
Yep. What's the best thing that you like about the teaching?
I like to see the connection that riders get with their horses.
Yep.
And that moment when it all gels and they both think, oh, yes, we can do this. I understand what each other wants. So that's a really special time for me. And I guess it's a bit selfish because I like to see that moment as much as they like to see it.
Yes. Yeah.
I cannot tolerate when people blame their horses for things, and that wears thin with me. Yes, so I tend to abandon that. If I can't work through that, I tend to abandon it because I can't cope with that.
Yep.
But, I love to see that connection.
And it's nice to know when people realise that really they're the ones in control. It's not about the horse, it's about them. And once they realise that it's up to them to communicate with the horse, some horses are easier and some are more difficult, but really it's the person who's doing the communicating. It's not, the horse doesn't care. We want to do the communication.
That's right, and that brings me to another favourite quote of mine, and that is, if the student hasn't learnt, and whether that be the rider or the horse, if the student hasn't learnt, the teacher hasn't taught. It comes back to me as an instructor, or it comes back to the rider as a rider, that if the message hasn't got through to the horse, someone's not doing their job.
Yeah. I like that one, actually.
Not the horse's fault.
Yeah. I had one that was something like, there's no such thing as a bad horse, there's only bad people, and there's only no such thing as a bad rider, there's only bad coaches. So you always put it on the person that's doing the coaching, but I like yours because it turns it all around into a more positive saying,
Yes.
What about, you've talked about Sue helping you. Who else has helped you along the way?
Oh, Well, I have had so much informal help.
Yep.
Sue's probably the most formal of them, but when I was a kid, we had a lady in Maffro called Hazel McMahon.
Yes.
And Hazel had a son and daughter about my age, and she was wonderful to our family when we were trying to get into the horses. She probably saved our bacon a few times for making terrible mistakes. So she was wonderful. I had a lot to do with Sale Pony Club, and we had a couple of great instructors there, and the whole pony club movement was wonderful. Kay Irving was quite inspirational, fearsome but inspirational. And then after the pony club days, when I went into, we had a spell of the showing, but then when I went into the show jumping, probably Gavin Chester was the greatest influence.
Yep.
And two other instructors that I had, Sharon Cox and also Michelle McMahon. Okay. So they were in the Sale area.
Was that Hazel's daughter?
Pardon?
Was that Hazel's daughter, Michelle?
No.
So no relation
Michelle's
at all?
No, she's from Queensland.
Yeah.
Michelle Lang, she used to be.
Oh, Michelle, yeah. She was Michelle Lang as a maiden name. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were great with my show jumping. And now I train with Ryder Kramer. He's a guy down here on the Mornington Peninsula. He's got a group of housewives, we call ourselves, that he teaches. And we're all sort of riding FEI dressage.
Good. What about horses who've influenced you? You know, you've talked about the one that, you learned to do the breaking in on, but who else has influenced you?
I had a great pony that was, a Galloway. He was actually my brother's. He was a Brumby cross, but I got him off my brother when he lost interest, but he was a piebald horse, and I just didn't know how honest a horse could be and how generous and forgiving they could be. I had him for 11 years, and we went from him just never have seen a pole when we got him from a dingo trapper to, one show jumping on him at Melbourne Show. He could I won a bending race on him at Melbourne Show, and I camp drafted him. He was just a wonderful, wonderful horse, and I realised how versatile they could be if you had them on side.
Yeah. They are pretty unique animals, aren't they? Yeah.
He's still got 6-bar records at some of the agricultural shows and he was 14 too.
That's great, isn't it?
So wonderful little horse. Yeah, so he really inspired me.
Do you think that was your proudest moment, winning events on him?
No, I don't think so. Winning things doesn't mean as much to me as it does to some. I think it's a bit of a short-term goal. I mean, I love it when I do, but it doesn't affect me that much if I don't. But the moment that I remember most, that excites me the most, is in a jump-off for a big class down at Barristock. Used to have a lot of show, the big show jumping classes, and once a year at Werribee Park. And in a jump-off, when I'd seen a horse go and it went really fast and I had to try and beat it, and my mare was just, and it's a mare I broke in myself, she was just on my wavelength. She wanted it as much as I did. And I just remember taking this line that I thought that I was just asking to have a rail down, but I just felt her lift.
Yep.
And it was an amazing feeling.
Wow.
And I think if there's one thing I remember out of all these years of riding, it probably boils down to about 20 strides in a jump-off.
Yeah, wow, just taking the right line and a bit of a risk, but you took it and it came off.
Yeah, and we knew each other so well.
Yes. Keryn, thinking about the line that you took, and it was a bit of a risk, what would you say to someone else in that circumstance? If you were coaching someone that they thought that they could do it, but they weren't sure, what would you say to them?
I think that's probably one of those other sayings which I don't actually use that often, but it's something along the lines of you don't want to die wondering. So I would say if you've got a really good connection with the horse and you're feeling that you might be able to do it, do you want to come second or do you want to try and win? And, which means the most to you? I'd rather try and win and not worry about coming, if you don't come second, doesn't matter. But if you don't win, that does matter.
Yeah. Okay, and that's good. So you're not playing it safe, but and you don't know. You don't know if you're going to win, and you don't know if you're going to have to take that chance. But you've got to keep learning, keep experiencing, and keep pushing the boundaries.
Mm.
Yeah. Keryn, tell me about, because you do a lot of coaching. Now, you do coaching, you've got a broad background with horses yourself. What do you think is a common fault, or what do you think can be improved with riders or just on the ground handling generally? What would you say would be a big improvement?
Well, what I see a lot of, and this is because I'm out in the stables as a competitor and also as a judge and as an instructor. So I've got a few different angles of seeing this. And one thing that I think is our young riders have amazing opportunities these days. They've got imported horses coming out their ears. They've got professional coaches that are the best that they can get. And they've got their mothers running around after them, all these things. And I wonder how well the riders get to know their horses. And I would like to think that their eyes were trained to notice that a leg was a bit puffy, or their eyes were trained to notice that a horse was holding its ears a different way or had a different expression in its face, or didn't quite feel the same, didn't quite finish its speed, all those little things. And I don't know that a lot of our young riders, and this applies, I'm thinking of show jumping and dressage here because I don't have a lot to do with the rest. I don't know whether the kids are having those skills that we used to have because we were solely responsible for our own horses. So we didn't have the support, we didn't have knowledgeable people around us, and we were left to our own devices a lot, so we learnt a lot that way.
Do you think then that it's because you spent more time with your horse, that it wasn't just come in, ride the horse, move on, do something else? And you might have your certain time to ride, whereas you may have spent, when you were younger, you may have spent a lot more time actually with your horse, just there with your friends, watching your horses, doing different things.
Yeah, and we played with our horses more, and I think you got to know them a bit better. Lots of long rides, and then you'd have the same horse to take to pony club and do, it doesn't matter what you did with it, sack races or whatever you wanted to do, it didn't matter, but you got to know your horses really well. And what I see with a lot of the riders now is they're training all the time. It's serious business all the time. They want 100% out of their horses, 100% of the time.
Yep.
And I think it's partly the environment that we live in. I used to ride my push bike for miles out to play with my horse, and then, if you're going to spend a half an hour or an hour riding out there, you're not going to then turn around and ride for 45 minutes and come back.
Yes.
So you tend to just stay out there.
Yep.
And kids don't have that opportunity now. So I'm not blaming the kids for the way, the environment they're in, but I think that we were different then. It was a different time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're an equestrian coach or a horse riding instructor, or even if you aspire to be one, have a look at the free video series for horse riding instructors on the Horse Chats website. Go there now, have a look, horsechats.com.
So what would you recommend then, to make it better? Is it people need to spend time with their horse on the ground to learn a bit more horsemanship, to learn about horses on the ground before they get on the back? Or what do you think the solution is?
I think its cause is a little bit, some of the mums I see devote themselves to and in dressage it's mostly daughters. So you get a lot of mums possibly living through their daughters, and that's a big generalisation. But there's a little bit of that, and so the achievements of the riders are a reflection of their mums, where my mum wouldn't know anything about it. So I think possibly the mums that need to let their kids make mistakes, because life is about mistakes. And I don't mean to get all, airy-fairy with that, but kids have to learn to make mistakes because it matters later on in your studies and your career and the way you bring up the next generation. It's all about learning how to cope with mistakes. It's not about always being trained to the hilt so that you don't make mistakes. So I think that's one thing. And I also think that there's probably too much instruction and not enough time for just socialising and enjoying your horses for the creatures that they are. I'm not sure with my horse, even though I really want him to go on in the dressage world. He goes to poles nights when he can. He goes for rides on the beach. We go for rides in the bush. We do a bit of cross country. And all those things just keep him happy.
Yep. Yep.
I think we probably don't do quite enough of that because we think our horses are too valuable.
The generalist riding rather than the specialist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We specialise too young, I think, and the inter-school comps don't really help that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What have you got in the way of a book for our listeners, something that can complement their training?
Well, the books that amazed me the most, there's lots of really good books. You know, you could go right back in your Podolskis and all those. But a couple of things that I really like are Tom Roberts and The Young Horse.
The Horse Control and the Young Horse? Is that the one?
Yes.
Yep.
That's the one. It's a yellow book. It's been around forever. I think he was in the police force or something in South Australia. But he is an old-fashioned horseman who's got a wonderful understanding of the way a horse thinks. And the other one is Monty Roberts. And he, you know, I thought he was a bit of hype going around.
Mm-hmm.
And someone gave me his book. I wouldn't have bought that one myself.
Which one did he give you?
Monty,
the man who listens to horses?
A horse.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I didn't really believe that book. And then he got down, you know, did a bit of a summary towards the end. And he said, you know, after 10 minutes, the horse will do this. And after 20 minutes, it'll do that. And after 30 minutes, it'll do something else. And this is in its body language.
Yep.
And I didn't believe it. So I went and bought a horse that hadn't been touched, and specifically to try his method on it, and I could not believe how successful his method was.
Mm-hmm.
So the next dozen or so horses I broke in using his method, and I don't break in anymore, but I still really get a lot of value out of some of the things that I've learnt in his book, and they're not about any sort of exercises or skills or anything. They're just about understanding the way the horse thinks.
But it's also maybe understanding the way the horse thinks, but it's teaching you to watch the body language, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, so they're two books that I find, you know, they're all the books are good, or they probably wouldn't be on the shelves, but those two stand out for me as being things that I've tried to impart to people, because you see a lot of people who just don't understand why the horse is what they think is being disagreeable.
Yep. And remember, you can find all the books recommended by our guests at horsechats.com/books. You can have a look at the guest page for the individual book they recommended, or just look at the recommended books by order of popularity at horsechats.com/books. What are you looking forward to now, Keryn?
Well, I've just, for the first time in my life, I've spent all my superannuation nearly and gone and imported a horse. So I'm looking forward to getting to know her.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got my other horse that is coming along nicely, quite happy with. If he'd stopped growing, it'd be even better. He's nearly 18 hands now, so that's giving me a bit of a shock. So I'm just looking forward to playing with those two. I do a little bit of teaching, but not so much now. There's 2 years ago we shifted down to the Mornington Peninsula, and I'm enjoying the social side of being down here amongst a whole lot of like-minded people after being at Sale, where I was a bit of a one oddity because of my passion. But now down here I just have a wonderful group of friends, and we've all got the same ideals, and we train a bit together, and that's wonderful. But I don't do as much teaching.
Okay, all right. And that's great about the two horses you've got, and the one that you've imported. That's a performance horse, is it? You've already he's already graded.
Yeah, she's Dutch.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
All right. If you can summarise your philosophy with horses, that'd be great.
Oh, dear. I think each horse as an individual, and try and understand the way it's thinking, understand what it's got in its memory, and understand that it can't see into the future.
Okay.
It can't understand that the exercises that you might want to do are something that are going to be building blocks for the future. It doesn't have any concept of that. It only knows what it already knows.
Okay, good. How can people contact you, Keryn?
Well, I'm on the Equestrian Victoria and Equestrian Australia website as a coach and as a judge.
Yep.
So either way, my address and email and phone number are on there.
And we'll get those details and put it on Horse Chats as well. So that'll be horsechats.com/Keryn Connors. and it'll be Keryn. So you can search for Keryn or search for Connors, and you'll find those contact details at the bottom of Keryn's page as well. Keryn, thanks for talking to us. Interesting to talk to you, and learn what the way that you went through to learn about horses and reading books. And, you didn't have the local mentors, so you just thought, no, I'm just going to learn this. And you've gone out and done it yourself. And, by the sounds of it, still reading and still enjoying horses.
Yes, you can never, ever learn it all.
Yeah. All right, thanks for talking to us today, and hopefully we'll catch up with you again sometime soon.
Thank you very much, Glenys. Bye.
Bye. Now, if you're still there, you probably know that I'm absolutely passionate about education within the horse industry. That's why I host this podcast. My other venture is Online Horse College. Have a look now at onlinehorsecollege.com, and I'll see you over there.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.